Welcome and Assalamu alaikum to everyone. This is the first lecture of the series in which I am going to discuss a lot amount of different algorithms and particularly basically going on for the loops. I'm talking about the for loops, while loops and do while loop, and because this has been a lot of problem for many of the students, and specifically I'm talking about nested for loops over there because they have a lot of issues. For that purpose I have you can see over here on the screen I have taken 4 or 5 different algorithms which have been asked to you in your lab work, which are going to be discussed. One of them is this, the other one is this, the third and the fourth and the fifth one. In this first part, I'm going to discuss just like 1 or 2 of them, and maybe in the next part we will discuss the next one. And as you can see over there, it has a lot amount of variety. Some of them are just hysterics over there. The other ones are just like a 1 zeros being printed, just like the right angle triangle. You can make this one as a right angle triangle also, so that it is exactly the same, just like static being printed over there. So there's nothing different over there, just ones and zeros are being printed. Then this is a Floyd's triangle over there, which is actually called as, because you can see over there the number of rows increase and you are hitting a printed 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 up till 15 being printed. And then the very famous one, that is actually the Fibonacci series over there. And then you have the Armstrong's number being printed over there. So this is going to be something very much over here. Now I have to select something from here, and that selection I'm going to do this one, the Floyd's triangle over there, and Floyd's triangle is going to be something over here. So based on that, I have a going to take this thing, and our first thing is this, that you're going to analyze it, that how this is going to be workable over there. And if you see very closely over there, that in this triangle, or actually a Floyd's triangle, that's why it's called, actually consecutive numbers are being filled in. And if you see very closely over here in this triangle over here, that this one has, this is the first row, and when you're talking about, this is actually the first row, and then this is the second row over here, and then this is the third row, you can see over there, that is being printed, and then this is the fourth row which is being printed, and then this is the fifth row which is being printed. And you can extend this one. Now in this case over there, you can see very easily, because the number has been asked from the user. So if the n was equal to 5, that's why they are like 5 rows over there. Now in each row you are going to have one more than the previous numbers being printed, and of course there is some space also being printed over there, because we don't want 7 8 9 and 10 to be consecutively together. So of course there is some space also being printed over there. Now before I proceed on to make, I'm not going to make you a flowchart diagram, I'm just going to go with a pseudocode kind of a development over here. And for that purpose I want to actually go on with the very first basic thing for nested for loops. And for that purpose, let me just take this one, and I want to actually discuss this for loops over there, which is actually one thing very, very important. Now remember one thing, whenever you are actually making a for loop, now a for loop or even a while loop, because for loop is very primitive type of a thing, so that's why I'm going to go with the for loop first. So if you have a for loop, supposingly, and that for loop of course has something, the initialization, the condition and all that, I'm not discussing that one. And that for loop starts with some braces over there, and then it ends over there, and inside that for loop there is another for loop, and that for loop also has some body inside it, and it has some initializations over there like this over there. And similarly the outer one has some initialization, the condition and the parameter, which is actually going to increase the number. Now if you see this whole over there, remember one thing, whenever I'm talking about a for loop or a nested for loop over there, whenever there is something to be displayed, one row, second row, third row, fourth row, fifth row, every time there is going to be a row printed, that is always going to be done by the outer loop. What I mean by this, I mean by this that whenever you are talking about one row, this row, second row, third row, this means that the outer loop over there, which of course has another inside loop, I will come back to later on, but of course this inner outer loop is going to have some commands over there, and that command is going to be executed when one row is there, second row. So this means if I want something of 5 rows to be printed, then this means that this particular for loop is going to be running 5 times. So the conditions, the initialization and everything inside these three are going to be set in such a way that it is going to run 5 times. So that every time one row is printed, then you have backslash n, then second row is printed, then backslash n, then third row is printed, then backslash n, then fourth row is printed, backslash n. So you have to print every time a backslash n and go on the next line. So remember one thing, and this is completely true even if you had something like this, supposedly instead of just number, which is actually a Floyd's triangle, you had something, a rectangle to be printed over there. And that rectangle was made up of asterisks over there. So that asterisks over there. So the one row is going to be printed by this one. So what I mean by this over there, so if I just give it a graphical kind of a situation. So the first row over here, when I'm talking about this first row, let me just make it again. So it's something. So when I'm talking about the first row, so the first row or all the rows over there, they will be always be done by the outer loop over there. So the outer loop, so this thing is going to be done by the outer loop. Remember this thing, one row, one iteration of that loop over there. And when I'm talking about the contents of that one, remember one thing, so whenever I'm going to do it, so all these ones are going to be presented over there. So this means that iterations of each row, so whenever I'm going to have one iteration of this one, so another one, another one, another one. So let's say it is going to be another row over there. Let me just make it another row. So I have this one. Let me just make it again, so it's a little visible to you. So I have this one. This will be the second iteration of this one. So this will be the first iteration, this will be the second iteration, and similarly, this will be, let me just make the fourth, fifth one. So this will be the fifth iteration of the outer loop over there. So you are going to, this means that if you are going to have 5 rows, the outer loop is going to run 5 times. This is one thing. Now, coming to the inner loop, what is going to happen inside the inner loop over there? Now, in inner loop over there, if you see very closely, now we are inside one row. We are inside one row. So this means that inside one row, the first row is going to only run once. The second one is going to run 2 times. The third one is going to run 3 times over there. So what this means, that this thing over here, this thing that is the inner loop, this thing is going to be controlling the inner loop. So what is going to be printed in one line is going to be printed by the inner loop. So this is going to be, now remember one thing important over there, that this is the third time when I'm booting this value, this thing is going to be the third time this for loop is going to be run. And when this is going to be run, then 4 space 5 space 6 is going to be printed. When this for loop was run for the very first time, 1 was printed when it was run first time. Then 2 and 3 were printed when it was run the second time. Then 4, 5, 6. So this means that this particular loop is not running every time for a fixed amount. This one is always running for X or whatever the variable may be. I will just discuss it later on. So this is going to run every time for 5. So this means this will run first, then it will go second, then it will go third, then it will go fourth, and then it will go 5. So this is fixed. But every time this loop is running, the inner loop has to run how many times? That is variable. So when this is 1, this is actually the first iteration, this also has to run first time. When this is having the second iteration, then this has to run 2 times. Then this is running a third time, then this has to run inside 3 times. So this is the third, first and second iteration. So what this means, that the condition of the second for loop, which is actually the inner while loop over there, is going to be dependent upon the value which is coming from the outer loop over there. So this means that the initialization, the conditions and all that are going to be a little difficult over there for the inner one. Now, let's see what is first of all which you are going to print inside the inner loop. So here in this case, the inner loop, which is here the inner for loop, what are going to be printing over there? Of course, there is going to be a printing the number, whatever is there. So you are going to have the printing of the number, and let's say that's a variable print underscore number. I will initialize them later on. I will just go on the next page and print it out. I'm just giving you a little idea. And then you are going to print the escape character, which is actually \n over there, because of course there is going to be there. But before that \n, you are also going to print a space over there. So you are going to print a space over there, which is actually the space over there in between the two numbers. And then afterwards, you are going to have that \n printed when this loop finishes. So \n is going to be printed actually outside this for loop, because this means that you have your line finished. So what is going to happen? You are first of all going to have your number printed, then a space, and then this will continue to print if the number of printing has to be done 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, that is dependent over there. So let's go on and try to develop this logic over there, how this is going to be done. So let me just take it on the next page. Let me just pick it on the next page, and let me just put a new, the same over here. And let's say, now, I'm not going to develop the whole code in front of you, because you are already familiar with that int main and all that, and what are the include libraries over there. Now, first of all, the first step which I'm going to do is this, that I am going to ask. Now, this is just a pseudo code. I'm not going with the flowchart development. I'm not going with anything. So because you have to ask the user. So you have to ask, that prompts the user here. It prompts the user. So I'm going to ask the user ask the user to input a positive number. So this is going to be a positive number, and I am going to save that number inside n. And n is a variable. Of course, that n has to be initialized first, and you are going to use the scanf and all that. You already know that. I'm just developing a pseudo code over there, or an algorithm that could actually be assisting you in making that. I will make that for loop in front of you just now, but I'm just printing. Second thing you are going to do is that you are going to initialize, or you are going to make initialize and declare. You are going to initialize and declare a variable. And that variable is going to be called as, let's say, print underscore number. Now, what is this print underscore number? Why I'm initializing it? Actually, this is that number, and this is going to be an integer, which is going to be actually printing what is the number. Because if you see over there, this is like actually a consecutive series. First row, this is 1, then there is 2, then there is 3, then there is 4, then there is 5, then there is 6, then is 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this number is going to be initialized, and I'm going to call it as 1. So this means I have initialized a variable, and this is the number which is going to be printed over there. Okay. So if the user supposedly in n has entered supposedly just 3, so it will be only printing 3 lines. We all know that. Of course, yes, it will be printing 3 lines. And when 3 lines are done, so this means that first of all, it will take this variable, print 1, increase that variable, then next time print it 2, then again increase it, then again print it 3, then so on it will go on. And this will go on for the 3 lines which are being asked, and so this will be there. So this variable is required for that printing. Then third thing, which is something very important, and that is that you are going to initialize your loop variables. Now, this is one way which you can do it, that you can initialize your loop variables. Now, one way is this, that you initialize your loop variables outside your loop, or one way is this, that you initialize them inside the for loop, that are the initialization, the condition, and the iteration over there. So I will just do the inner one first, and then I will show you how you can do that one, the initialization and declaration before the for loops are started over there. Now let's see over there. So supposingly, let's say I have a for loop over there, that is going to be started over there. I'm just going to write down the for loop first over there, because that is actually the main essence of this over there. So I have a for loop, and since this time I know from my previous slide that this for loop is going to be running how many times, how many rows I want. Since how many rows I want, that is equal to n. So this means over here in this one, let's say I'm going to initialize a variable int. Now here you can call it rows, x, or whatever. I'm going to just use a simple variable x over there, int x equal to 0. Now when I'm going to initialize it equal to 0, this is something very, very important and need to understand this thing. When you have initialized a variable int x equal to 0, the next thing is the condition. Now, how many times you want this to run? If you have entered 3, supposedly I'm just taking the assumption 3 over there. So this means that the condition has to be that x is less than just n. This is something very important. Why? Because initial value of x is 0, the loop will be run, then it will be increased by, let me just call it x plus plus, and then this will be run. So next iteration, x will be now 1. 1 is of course less than 3, so it will be again run. Then again it will be run second time, then it will be going to 3. Then 2, sorry, so 2 over there, 2 is always less than 3, of course it will be again running. So third time it will be running, then it will be increased, and then it will come back, 3 is less than 3, sorry, they are equal. So that's why this loop will not be running. So it will make the loop run 3 times if you are starting from your 0 and you are ending up till. But if this loop, supposedly, let's say if this loop was starting from 1, then you have to make it run for first, second, and third also. For this purpose, then you will have to make it equal to also sign over there. So this is something very, very important. You have to learn it whenever you are making a loop run. So if you want to make a loop run for n number of specific times, then you are going to start from 1, then you have to make this less than equal to n. So this is I'm going to stick with this one. So x is equal to 1, x is less than equal to n over there, and this will be. So now my loop starts over there, and my loop is going to have something like this. Now, inside it, the next row, I'm going to use a different color over there. So I have another loop, and inside that loop, now another variable, int y. Int y, again, I'm going to use the 1 over there, int y equal to 1. And now what is going to be the condition? Now this is something very important. Why? Because every time when I'm going on the next row, supposedly I want to print on the first row. How many times I want the printing to be done? It is just once. If I'm on the second line, how many times I want to do the printing this time? 2 times. When I'm the third row, how many times I want to do the printing? 3 times. So this means that every time I want to do a printing, that printing has to be done the same number of time. That is the loop iteration. So if this inner one is being run for the very first time, so this has to be run once. If this is going to have second time, so it has to be done twice. If it is running, sorry about this. So if it is running for the third time, I have to run it 3 times. And if it is running for the fourth time, then it has to be done fourth. So this means that this value of y has to go up till that point, which is the number of iteration of the outer loop. So this means that here x is going to play a very, very important role. So this is something very, very important. So this means that here y has to be less than x over there, and here. Now this is something very important. Since I am starting from 1, it has to be equal to sign also there, and then it will be y plus plus. So now what will happen? Now see this very carefully. When this x is equal to 1, it enters the loop, y is equal to 1, Yes, y is less than or equal to x. Yes, the condition is true. It will be printing over there. So what will happen? 1 will be printed over there, which is exactly this thing. Now, when the loop ends over there, it goes back over there. Now x is equal to 2. Now this goes inside it. Again, the loop is started. Now this time x is equal to 2 over there. So now this inner loop will be running 2 times over there. And why 2 times? Because I have to print 2 and 3 over there. So I hope you are getting the point over there that this condition y is less than or equal to x is dependent upon the outer loop. So if the outer loop is running first time, then it will be only running 1. If it is running for the second time, this will be running 2. If it is running for the third time, this will be, and this is completely true because this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5, and there is the sixth line, then this will be 6 times, then 7, then 8, and then 9, and then 10. So the inner loop is going to have this condition over there. And inside the inner loop, I am going to now print what? I have to print this variable that is the print underscore number. So this means the first thing first, I'm just going to write down the printf function, and inside printf function, I just have to print on. So this will be actually %d sign, the specifier over there, and then inside it I'm going to write down print underscore number, and this is going to be printing. When this is done, I need a space to be printed, and that space will be printed by just simply a space with double quotes over there. And when this is done, I have done everything. I don't need to do anything else. Just one thing which is remaining, because this print underscore number has to be printed again. I don't want the previous number to be printed again. So this means that I have to increase this print underscore number. So my next task will be that print f, oh sorry, not print f, sorry, I'm just to get wrong. This will be print underscore number. This will be print underscore number plus plus, which means it's going to increase the value of print underscore number. So previously it was 1, now it will become 2. So next time when this loop starts, it will be printing 2. Then next time it loop starts, it will be train. So now this will end the loop. Now since I don't have space, so I will just copy this all. Let me just copy this all for, sorry, on this part. Let me just copy this all on the next page, and we can then, sorry, on this part. So over here, let me just copy this all so I can then arrange it over here like this. And now, so I have this thing, and now the loop, the outer loop is here. Now, before I complete this thing, now let's see over there what is happening. When this is done, the inner loop is run whatever number of times. I need to go on the next line because all the printing is being done inside the inner loop. So this means that outside the inner loop, the body of this one over here, I have to make print f and \n over there. What this will do, this will actually print the non-escape character. So here this will be \n, here this will be \n, \n. Because all the printing is being done by this inner loop over there. Remember, all the printing is being done by the inner loop. This thing only makes it on the next line. Why? Because this loop is going to run for 1st, 2th, 3rd, 4th, 5th over there. So now this code is complete. Nothing fancy. Everything is done. Now let's just run this program. Supposingly, let's say for n equal to 3. So supposingly, let's say I have this variable. Let's say I have, let me just make it on another page, and let's just say, now I'm going to show you one way how you can actually test your codes over there, how you can actually make it run. So I have this code over there, let's say, and in this code, let me just decrease the size a little. So over here, and here on the top over there, let's say, let me use another color. So this is print, let me call it int print underscore number equal to 1. So this is my code. Now here on this side, let's say I have, how many variables I have in this code? I have print underscore number, I have x, I have y, I have n. And before that, let's say before this thing, I am taking also an input, and that input n is equal to, let's say, equal to, in this case, let's say I'm just making it equal to 3. Okay. You can take scanf and all that, totally up to you. That's totally up to you how you're going to take that from the user, and all that stuff happens. Now, how many variables I have over there? Let's say the first variable I have is n. The next variable I have is print underscore number. Then the next variable is x. Then the next variable is y. So let me just make a small table. Let me just make a small table so it becomes a little easy to understand how the variables are actually changing. And always make this tables and all the stuff whenever you want to actually run it over there. Now let's see over here. I'm changing the color so it's a little visible for you. Now when the program initially starts, n value is equal to 3, and that will remain same for all the values in this table. Why? Because n is not changing. N is an input from the user. Print underscore number, when the initial program starts from here, this is going to be 1. Now when the inner loop starts, this loop starts over there. Now at present x is equal to 1, and it is initialized x is equal to 1. Now this goes inside the inner loop. When it goes inside the inner loop, and at the very same time, let me just make a small screen in front of you. Let's say this is a small screen, and let's say this is a small screen in front of me, and on this screen I'm going to print it using some different color over there. Now when this is inside the inner loop over there, it goes on, and now it has to print that print underscore number. What is the value of print underscore number? That print underscore number is equal to 1 over here. So this will be 1 printing over there. Now 1 is that printed, then a space is printing. Now I'm not going to print a space over there. The space is being printed. After that thing, what happens? The value of y is going to be increased over there, because the value of y initially was equal to y, 1, because inner loop started with y equal to 1. So what happens? This loop over here makes it equal to y equal to 2. When it goes equal to 2, will this loop again run? No. Why? Because the condition is here, y is less than equal to x. So this means that y will remain 1. When this happens, the print underscore number now becomes equal to 2. So this means that print underscore number now becomes equal to 2. N will remain 3. And then what happens? Backslash n is printed over there. So when backslash n happens, let's say backslash n is printed over there like this, and now the cursor has gone to the second line. Now when the cursor has gone to the second line, now I am back to the start. Now this time x value has to increase. So this means when x value has to increase, x becomes equal to 2. Then the inner loop again starts, and now y is equal to 1, because the loop has to again start. Again, this is an initialization. Remember, this is an initialization. So now what happens? You have the print underscore number. So this time you are going to print. What is the value of print underscore number? That's 2. So 2 will be printed over there. Sorry for the color. I'm using so many colors, so that mix ups. Now when 2 is printed, then a space is printed. Then afterwards, print underscore number. That again, so this means, let's see this I have over there. So what happens? This was again 3. What will happen? Print underscore number will become now this time 3. X is still 2. Now y will become 2. So when this happens, because print has, so after space, there will be a 3 printed over there. And when this will be done, now this time y has now become equal to 2. So now when it will go on and check it on, now y will become 3. And now it will check on for this condition over there. Can this run? No, sorry, that cannot run because this was the second time. So what will happen now? This will exit this inner loop and go on to this thing. And now this time there will be a backslash n for this thing. Then it will go on the next line over there. Let's say it goes on the next line over there. Now, what is the value of n still? N is still equal to 3. What is print underscore number over there at print line? This is now 4, because that was increased previously. So now it has gone to 4. X is now this time equal to 3, because now the loop is again starting from top over there. So it's a third iteration, because this n was equal to 3. So previously it started from 1 here, then 2 times, and now 3 is this thing that this loop is now going to run 3 times over there. So now what happens? Initially it again starts over there. Y is equal to 1. Then what happens? This will be printing 4 over there. then a space will be printed. That will be again then 5, then a space will be printed, and then a 6 over there, and then it will be \n again printed. And how this will happen when this will be done? This will be again 3, this will be 5, this will be 3, this will be 2, this will be 3, this will be 6, this will be 3, this will be 3 over there. So you can see now that this thing is this thing is this, and this thing is this. So when this happens, now x has become equal to 3, and here 3 is less than equal to 3. So the third time it was done. Now where it will go back, now x has become equal to, here x has equal to 4, and now the whole loop will be broken off. Why? Because the outer loop has now gone beyond the condition, and that will be all. So you can see now that your display screen is going to display something like this. And just to keep it a little one over there, because this \n, after printing it, this \n, when it will be printed on over there, the cursor will be somewhat here. So this small code over there, you can see this very, very small code which you are seeing over there is actually doing the whole stuff. Now, if n was equal to 5, then of course you are going to get something like this, which is over here. Try to do this thing on your computers, try to do this one on your computers, and try to print this all. Use this table mechanism. This table mechanism is going to do a lot of help to you, and try to do this thing. And one thing very important, I'm just leaving this with you, the hint over there. If I go back to the first slide over there, this code over there, let me just take this one. Now, what is the difference with this code? Let me just put it here. Let me maybe here. Yes, this one here. What is the difference between these two codes? If you see very closely, this thing and this thing, they are almost the same. The only thing changing is this, that here you are increasing the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It was a decimal number, you are increasing it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Here, it's just binary toggling, which means previously 1, then 0, then 1, then 0, then 0, then 1, then 0, then 1. So every time you are printing it, you are not incrementing the number. So what you are doing in this example over there, you are incrementing print underscore number. So what this means, you are now going to here initialize a variable that will be print underscore, supposedly starting from 1. When this is printed over here, when it is printed, here you are going to change it to 0. When it comes back to it, then you are going to change it to 1. So you have to develop a logic using your if-else code. This is something very important. Try to develop this thing, and maybe in the next series or next part of this one, I'm going to tell you that how, but just adding a small code over there in this thing, instead of this plus plus, you can make that very simply this pattern. And here 1, 2, 3, 4, depending upon how many rows you want, you can easily print it at. You can even use it for hysterics as well. Remember, you can even use it for hysterics as well. But here, by having different patterns, you can even do that one easily over there. I hope this was beneficial, and this code is something very, very easy, and you can easily see by using nested loops over there, you can easily run this one. So hopefully next part, I'm going to discuss this Fibonacci series over there, which is something very, very important, a part of almost all languages whenever you are making something. So this happens a lot over there. So this Fibonacci series and this algorithm over there. Thank you, and Allah.